We also have some other very interesting talking points that we'll be looking at aside from Nigeria and Ghana's relationship, which has been reawakened after 2019's episode where Nigeria did, close down her borders and caused a lot of disaffection between the Nigerian people and the Ghanaians who felt Nigeria did that to get at them. Also, but fast forward 2024, it's Nigeria-Ghana in good relationship, trying to mend fences and move on. All right, let's also let you know that there's some other very topical issues making the rounds in Africa's biggest black nation, Nigeria. Is of interest to us. We'll be looking at the NNPC transactions. Where the Auditor General of the Federation has uncovered minimum 4 financial infractions amounting to 514 billion naira in the operations of the Nigeria National Petroleum Company Limited in 2021, for the financial year in 2021. It's very important knowing that Mele Kyari is technically on his way out of the NNPCL, even though it's yet to be confirmed. We are waiting for the clearance from the federal government. So we'll be looking at those questions to answer before he exits the oil and gas industry. So we'll be looking at those issues at the NNPCL. We'll also be taking you to other matters making the rounds in Nigeria from the AGF, talking about the Auditor General of the Federation. We'll be moving you to other issues concerning the Nigerian Police Force. A very, very, very disturbing occurrence as Ogun State Police Command has raised concerns over the significant increase in reports of missing persons in the state. The command spokesman, talking about Omolola Odutola, made this known in a statement in Abeokuta, stating that the command had noticed an unprecedented rise in the number of missing persons across all age groups. She explained that only a small fraction of individuals had been found. So this is very disturbing, especially when we look at insecurity in the country. Ogun State is crying out. The police force there says a lot of people disappearing, and it's a sign of concern to Nigerians. Also be looking at a little bit of sporty, where we've got the Nigerian national team being coached by Charlie, the new coach of the Super Eagles. And we'll be looking at why the Nigerian Football Federation confirmed Erica Charlie as the new head coach of the national team. The appointment followed the recommendations of the NFF Technical and Development Subcommittee. So we're looking at this coach. Is he the right man to take us to the World Cup? It's not better we have our own Cerezo, our own Finidi George, our own Emmanuel Amunike, who has a proven track record, who has played at the highest level of football, who understands football at its best, rather than bring a man who could barely take Mali even to the finals of the Cup of Nations, where the Super Eagles got to the finals. And so we'll be looking at Kele. Is this appointment made for the benefit of the NFF and its members because they're going to get kickbacks, or is because this man truly has what it takes to lead Nigeria to the promised land? These and other talking points is what we're going to be discussing on today's edition of the program, The Desk. Stay with us. After this break, we're hitting the discuss button.
Anthony, I can hardly hear you. So you have to say your sound from your end. I can hardly hear you. There's no sound.
All right, welcome back from the break. It's now time for us to hit the discuss button. All right, we've been joined by Ibrahim Al Hassan, who is the head of the political desk of EIB, one of Ghana's biggest media houses in Accra. Ibrahim, thank you for joining us on the desk.
You're most welcome, Anthony.
All right, first of all, congratulations for the inauguration of the president of Ghana in the person of John Mahama. So just take us through, barely hours after his inauguration, he kick-started by appointing a special advisor for the 24-hour economy, talking about Tano. Can you take us through the expectations of
has been a veteran? Yes, you're right, Anthony. And so the appointment you related to, the one in charge of the implementation of the 24-hour economy is Dr. Busi Tano. He's a veteran of the NDC. In fact, early 2000s, he led some group of members of the now governing NDC to break away from the party under Rawlings and then form the Reform Party. He was actually on the ballot paper for the 2000 elections on the ticket of the National Reform Party. He lost, and after a long while, that party returned to its original fold, and that is the NDC. And so he is the one who has been tapped by John Dramani Mahama to lead the implementation of the 24-hour economic promise. It's actually a flagship promise of the opposition NDC then that got them the power during the December 7th election. So that's one. That's not the only appointment. In fact, he has virtually also appointed his kitchen cabinet. And so his former chief of staff, Julius Debra, has returned to the same portfolio, Julius Debra. And then Dr. Callistus Mahama, who was more or less like the director of operations during his campaign, has now been appointed as secretary to the president. Among other appointments as well, some in caretaker roles. But of course, something that has happened today for John Mahama's first day in office is a revocation of the appointment of all metropolitan, municipal, and district chief executives. Of course, you are in Nigeria, you operate under a federal system of governance. Here in Ghana, we practice unitary governance. And so you have regions. We have about 16 regions. Headed by regional ministers, and then we also have regional court directors. When you go down to the district level, you have other municipal or metropolitan or district chief executive. They are the representatives of the president across the over 200 districts in the country. Those who are in office or were in office until hours ago were nominated and approved by the outgoing president, our outgoing president now, Nana Akufo-Addo. As we speak, all of them, with no exception, have had their appointments terminated.
What was the reason? What was the reason given by John Mahama? What was the reason?
Well, these are political appointments. These are political appointees, and so they are all members of the New Patriotic Party, which is out of power now. And so, by practice, by principle, you won't expect a new administration to be working with them. So, the Local Government Act of Ghana actually allows the incoming president or any new administration to undertake this exercise. It was just once under the presidency of John Evans Atta Mills the late, that the MMDCs were allowed to stay in office for more than 6 months. The NDC, of course, which brought Atamils as its candidate and then won the presidency, later realized that it was a very challenging and a bad move. And so it didn't come as a surprise at all that for the first day in office for John Dramani Mahama, all these individuals have been asked to hand over they are handing over those documents and keys and then all government properties in their possession to the coordinating directors in the various district assemblies. And so it's not surprising because almost every president does the same thing.
All right, let's first of all, I mustn't forget to say congratulations on your first female vice president. Let's look at what this means for the Ghanaian women folks, and how does it change the narratives in terms of women participation in politics, and has she taken any steps to suggest that she intends to empower more women in Ghana?
Well, Anthony, I read a piece from a young Ghanaian father, a father of 3 girls, who has been trying his best to let the children know that the future is bright and that the sky is not even a limit and that the sky might just be a stepping stone. He shared a very interesting story that now his fatherhood and his ability to raise his 3 young girls have just been given a boost, and to him he will have somebody to point to and then point to the children, his 3 girls, that if they study hard, if they do all the good things, if they do not allow life happenings to distract them, they might rise to even become vice president. As to their young father, it's enough motivation that for the first time in the history of this country, the number 2 person of the land is a woman. So the symbolism, Anthony, can never be underestimated. Again, we have for the first time a president tell the public, the Ghanaians, that he is giving 3 ministries to his vice president. It's never happened. And these ministries are education, health, gender, children and social protection. And so the vice president, who is a woman, has not just occupied the office, but for the first time there are KPIs for which we can measure her performance, and that will be the performance of these 3 portfolios, these 3 ministries. Education, because she was a former education minister, she rose to become the first vice chancellor of a university in Ghana, and that's the University of Cape Coast. And then also, like I said, she served as an education minister. So it's not surprising that the president of the land, John Dramani Mahama, even in opposition, had given the education portfolio to her, which would come directly under her office. Again, health. Yes, when we talk about health matters, women, the vulnerable, of course, are key stakeholders in that. And that's why I'm sure the president, even in opposition, also added that particular portfolio to the portfolio of his vice president. And then, of course, that needs no explanation. There is a ministry here known as Ministry for Gender, Children, Women and Children and Social Protection, Women, Gender and Children Protection. And so, therefore, that directly falls under her. And so, yes, aside the symbolism, there's an opportunity for Professor Nana J. Opoku-Agyeman to perform, to encourage many more women to join politics and be at the decision-making table. Here in Parliament, where I am actually speaking to you from, the NPP side, and that is the opposition NPP now, has lost more than 10 women. But that shortfall has been covered by the NDC. That actually increased its number of women in the House, and so it's more or less like +1 - 1. Even though the governing party then lost many women, the opposition garnered many more women to make up for the deficit. So the numbers are still hovering around 40 to 41 because there's one constituency outstanding that will bring a woman, regardless of who wins, whether NDC or NPP, because 2 women are in contest for that particular constituency. So, Anthony, beyond the symbolism, there's much more potential for this particular ticket.
All right, We know that during his campaign, the president pledged to introduce deliberate policy interventions to encourage and support businesses and companies to operate 24/7, preferably in a three-shift system of 8 hours each. He did also emphasize the creation of an enabling environment to boost productivity, competitiveness, and well-paying jobs. Do you see these promises? Do you see this happening?
Well, they are low-hanging fruits, Anthony. They are, for instance, if you talk about 24-hour economy, before even the private sector comes in, the state has the responsibility to get some of its services rendered 24/7. First is the port. The port is run by the state, and there are many goods that land at the port every now and then. And when you go there, there are queues relative to clearing of cargo at the port. If the president gives the orders and directives for the Tema port, the Takoradi port, and other port to operate 24/7, that's a good start. We talk about the passport office. Yes, there are many people who apply for passport. Their passport might be ready, but because they work 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., by the time they are ready to go there physically to take their passport, the offices might be closed. If that office will be operating 24/7, that regular worker can leave office at 5 p.m., still go to the passport office and get his passport. And there are many other services, rendered by government that can go 24 hours. But for the private sector to come in, there must be motivation. And the motivation, according to the government now, is to offer them reduced tariffs. So if you operate at night, the tariffs you pay for electricity and water will be lower than if you operate during the day. These are the incentives that will get many more businesses, especially in the manufacturing sector, to produce more and run 24 hours. The questions have been asked about ready market. Anthony, just like Nigeria, just like Ghana, these two economies are import dependent. Nigeria depends on many consumables being imported into the country. Same with Ghana. So if there is a need for production to ramp up, and then for import substitution to be a trend of the day, and then these items that are imported are produced locally, obviously there should be ready market for these product. And so yes, it's early days yet, and that's how come, as you mentioned, he has put a man in charge of the implementation of this particular policy. Usually he has given himself 120 days. He has signed a 120-day contract, social contract, he terms it, for the people of Ghana. And within these 120 days, he has enumerated the number of things we do. For instance, he talks about naming his appointees within 14 days. The clock has started taking from now. Day one is almost off. And there is a promise to scrap the e-levy. The e-levy, electronic transaction levy, is a tax element that was opposed by virtually everybody, was nonetheless introduced by the outgoing administration. And many believe that it is one of the reasons why that party lost miserably. And so now the country is under an IMF program. So the conversation is that the IMF will have to be engaged for some of these tax lines and tax elements to be done away with. But nonetheless, the premise is that it should happen within the first 120 days.
All right, well said. Let's get into our next discourse, which is tackling poverty, unemployment, and insecurity, because President Bola Tinubu has called for close collaboration between Nigeria and Ghana to tackle insecurity, poverty, unemployment, and insurgency. Tinubu made the call in his speech delivered at the inauguration of President John Mahama of Ghana. Let's look at this call by Nigeria's president. Looking at the recent cordial relationship between Nigeria and Ghana, and not to forget that, just to tell you congratulations, we beat the Black Galaxies. I know you remember that very well. Congratulations for that victory.
Yes, I do. Congratulations to you as well.
Forward.
Yes, congratulations to you as well. When it comes to football, see, Nigerians and Ghanaians, it's a love-hate relationship, right? Yeah. Yes, we put fun at each other. But at the bottom of this relationship is that of brotherliness, is that of love, and is that of the quest to get the continent to be better than it is. So it didn't come to me as a surprise at all that the special guest of honor is Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the Nigerian president. And in fact, there are about 16 presidents that showed up yesterday at John Mahama's inauguration, including for Kagame, and then of course Ibrahim Traore as well, the Burkinabe military leader. We'll return to talk about him because we touched on insecurity in the sub-region. We'll return to talk about him. But the point I'm making is that there are even some Ghanaians who are wondering why Paul Kagame, for instance, of Rwanda, was not given the opportunity to speak. Right? In addition to...
Do you think you have the reason why he wasn't allowed to speak? Because he's very instrumental in Africa.
Yes, by convention, that honor is given to the special guest of honor. And guess who that is? Your president. And so once in our local palace, there's another judge says that when the elder beefs, as in bathing, then the water in the household is exhausted. Right? So once the special guest of honor was given the opportunity to speak, nobody else was allowed to speak. Of course, there were other platforms that could have been created, like a lecture for the other presidents to be able to, for instance, to speak. But of course, let's not take Ahmed Tinubu's flowers from him. He was a special guest of honor, and he spoke very well. Touched on the relationship between Ghana and Nigeria, and that there's no way Nigeria will harm any Ghanaian. Of course, and that's quite profound. Because of these issues of trade, Nigerian traders in Ghana and vice versa, and these issues that come up every now and then as to whether they are allowed to engage in retail business or not. These are issues that I'm sure the Nigerian president and his Ghanaian counterpart will be addressing. In fact, when John Mahama got elected, he visited a number of countries in the sub-region. Nigeria was one of them, and he met Ahmed Bola Tinubu to have these discussions. Now we are here talking about even having fuel supply constant to power our thermal plants and then ensure that we have constant supply of electricity. We have enough generation capacity to supply electricity to even the sub-region, Cote d'Ivoire, Burkina Faso, and Nigeria if need be. But then again, you need fuel to power those plants to ensure that you take advantage of the capacity. These engagements go a long way to assist in that regard. And so, yes, there's a conversation about collaboration. And many people have said that Africa is a huge market, especially Nigeria. And that's how come there was the AFCFTA. If well implemented, that's a huge market within the African continent. And so I'm sure the president, the 16th president that came, the collaboration between the Ghanaian president and the Nigerian counterpart, and the two countries and many other African countries will come together to ensure that at least they trade among themselves, they open the borders to each other, and they create wealth. That will in return create employment for the citizens, not just in the sub-region, but on the African continent as a whole. Yeah, so the issue of insecurity, as you rightly mentioned, came up strongly because ECOWAS chair Tinubu, at the point when he took office, was greeted with many coup d'etats in the sub-region, Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso. And so Ibrahim Traore was here yesterday. That came as a surprise to many because of the ECOWAS sanctions on Burkina Faso, to the extent that Burkina, Mali, and Niger have formed an alliance seeking to detach themselves from ECOWAS or exit from ECOWAS. Many have read meanings into his decision to grace the inauguration of John Mahama as a window of opportunity to be able to talk the three nations out of breaking away from ECOWAS.
Sure.
And of course, another controversial issue that came up was with his firearm or sidearm that was visible even in the open. Of course, you must understand, Anthony, that Ibrahim Traore has actually been able to survive more than 10 assassination attempts in the last couple of months because there's turbulence in this country. And so, from what we gather, there was that agreement. He informed everybody, the protocol office and everybody, that he would be bearing his firearm, and there was no opposition whatsoever to that particular request. And that's how come you saw him in public greeting even the new president, John Dramani Mahama, still with his firearm by his waist. Anthony.
All right, my final question to you will be looking at away from politics and all that. Let's just wrap it up with the sports angle of the love between Nigeria and Ghana. Nigeria just appointed a Malian as a coach for the Super Eagles. How do you perceive this move? Because Nigerians are particularly shocked. He does not really have a pedigree in African football, or even the club size he was part of in Europe are not really renowned.
Well, the shock you related to is probably the reason why the Nigerian FA has done what it did by appointing a non-Nigerian, but also an African, because the country has been alternating between Nigerians, especially ex-footballers, and then the Europeans. And I'm sure the FA came to the conclusion that that has not been helpful. Come to Ghana, for instance, we've been very abysmal. In fact, the only positive from the Black Stars will have been the defeat to Nigeria, the defeat it inflicted on Nigeria to qualify for the last World Cup. Since then, it's been terrible after terrible relative to the performances, right? Hesitating at the group stage, at AFCON, and what have you. So imagine if after taking stock, the Ghana Football Association says going for another African coach will be the best option because the locals have no help, the foreign coaches have not equally been helpful. So let's try something new. I'm thinking that is what has informed the decision by the Nigerian FA as to whether it works or not. The end will justify the means. And so, Anthony, I will be an optimist and say that yes, we went for our own Utuado, who was more or less like a physical trainer at Borussia Dortmund. He was abysmal at the World Cup. Whatever convinced, I went back for him again, and he's with us and still performing abysmally. So hopefully, the decision that the Nigerian FA has taken will pay off. If it doesn't, they will have questions to answer to Nigerian citizens.
All right, thank you very much. Ibrahim Al-Hassan is the political desk head of EIB, one of Ghana's biggest media networks in Accra, Ghana. Thank you. Always a pleasure having you join me on the desk, and congratulations one more time to Ghanaians. And we wish you the very best under the leadership of John Mahama. And hopefully, one of these days we'll be trading our jollof rice for more goodies.
Most definitely. In fact, now let's agree that Nigerian jollof is superb, Ghanaian jollof is superb. Above Mahama and Tinubu, they all enjoy the various jolloфs. Let's settle this once and for all and embrace the friendship and the partnership.
All right, it's a deal. Thank you very much. Always a pleasure talking to you, Al Hassan. All right, that's how we're going to draw the curtains on that conversation. Talking to our African brother from the West African region of Ghana as they celebrate the inauguration at the last 24 hours of John Mahama, the new president of Ghana. All right, I'll go for a quick break. When we return from this break, we'll be talking to a political analyst who will be tearing on some of this discourse and also other issues making the rounds right here in Nigeria. Stay with us. right, welcome back from the break. You're still watching one of the most compelling talk shows on TV, The Desk on Global Television, and it's now time for us to finish where we started. And now I've got in the studios in the person of Toba Owojayi, who is a political analyst and also a political aide, joining us to help us look at other issues making the rounds in Nigeria. First of all, Happy New Year. You're looking good.
Happy New Year, my brother. You're also looking good. It's a good year.
Yeah, great year. All right, so let's begin from the issue that pops up from the Auditor General of the Federation. Has uncovered a minimum of 4 financial infractions amounting to 514 billion naira in the operations of the NNPCL in 2021 financial year. This was disclosed in an audit report of the non-compliance, internal control weaknesses in the MDAs for the 2021 financial year recently cited. The breakdown of the infractions include irregular deductions worth 343.64 billion naira from domestic crude sales at source and warehousing of 83.66 billion from the Federation's miscellaneous income in a sinking fund account. Also, there was unauthorized deductions of 82.95 billion naira from the Federation revenue for refinery rehabilitation and this unsubstantiated payment of 3.75 billion naira for sale of petrol. And we know that we've got Mele Kyari, who in some quarters is technically out on his way out of the NNPCL. The big question is why they were waiting for the federal government to authorize or confirm that move. But should we let him go yet with this very disturbing figures we are seeing? And we're looking at 2021, 4 infractions. We're not talking about 2022, we're not talking about 2023 or 2024. Should he be made to answer questions before exiting the system?
Yeah, he doesn't need to. He can exit and still answer questions. This is how far governance has come now. It's not, his leaving office does not exonerate him from anything. We can see what has happened so far with Emefiele. Leaving office doesn't save you in any way. As a matter of fact, it's better for us so we can have a clear.
So you don't influence
things, and then we can know what's going on. My point would be, this is 2021 we're discussing. It's long. If the Buhari administration had known what they were doing, I think we should have been discussing 2021 from even 2022, latest 2023, and 2025, and we're talking about infractions of 4 years ago. If infractions of 4 years ago are making breaking news, then how are we improving our system? This is what we are saying. So they need to bring those facts out. Where would you get the facts? What can you point out? Who are the officers in charge of this? This will be very small transactions. I know it sounds like a big amount of money, but there will be many small pockets of transactions across the entire federation. Maybe one filling station has 2 million deficit, another one. To gather all of this evidence.
Okay. Not to cut you short, but does this tell us why the former Accountant General Federation was able to steal 90+ billion naira?
Yes,
because he was part of it.
Yes, the system is complex and gives you a lot of places where you can hide. Do you understand? If you let's say you dump 40,000 files here, and I'm able to, as an accountant, know where and where I can make some changes,
quick gains
in the whole system. If somebody is not thorough, competent, and has a clear political will to investigate it and do a thorough work, then it will slip. 515 billion looks big, but if you compare it with what takes place in NNPC, it looks, at the end of the day, to look small. So they need to go further. They've given us a few facts. The facts are not good enough. We need to know, especially for the large transaction among it, those 2 transactions need to be audited properly. They should make an inquiry about it. We shouldn't say the volume of money is small. Once we handle it properly now, we can negate it from happening again.
Well, looking at the unauthorized deductions of 82.95 billion naira, when you say unauthorized, that means it didn't go through the right channel, it wasn't signed off.
Yes.
should we be holding also the banks responsible? Because this money is obviously were not saved in someone's house. They were in banks, they were transferred. The EFCCs, the banks, they were supposed to raise the red flag once certain threshold of money is to be moved. Does this tell us how corruption, how deep it is? Because obviously even the presidency is involved, because some of these monies would not, go through without someone within the system. Yes.
So these are the issues we have here. You have people bankers pursuing targets. Somebody knows he's going to lose his job if this account moves, and the person who holds that account in that bank tells you to make so payments to so account, and then you are looking at, sir, where are the documents backing this up? He says, no, you have a voucher. I've given you a voucher. I've signed it. Process it. You will not go back to NNPC and ask them, has every due diligence been done before he brought this voucher to me to sign? What you would say is, yes, sir. So these are the issues. We have a lot of bottlenecks and a lot of loopholes in the system that makes this continuously happen.
Is Mr. President completely, can we absolve him from this criminality, this illegal deductions? Talking about previous President Muhammadu Buhari, who was the minister of, the man in charge of the oil and gas sector. Can we absolve him of all this?
No, we cannot.
And this was the man who was called the champion crusader of corruption.
This is what I'm saying, you see. From the Goodluck's time, everybody became afraid of what a minister of petroleum can do when they saw what Diziani did. Right? So everybody now feels like, if I give somebody minister of petroleum, the person is going to steal the whole country. So everybody.
Well, have they done any better?
That's what I'm saying.
Has President Buhari done any better?
I'm coming to that. So when they sat on these positions, you have now made yourself doubly responsible. Number one, first of all, as president of a country that is still largely dependent on petroleum. Number two, you have now made yourself the minister who is in charge of all the signings on that. So if you don't have the knowledge for it, and they just bring files to you for you to sign, you have implicated yourself. So I don't see why every time people who have no knowledge of petroleum, because they are president, want to remain as ministers of petroleum. How can you work, for heaven's sake, all these years as a politician, and you don't have anybody you can trust that is also competent to be able to look at these things? Because if you don't know the names, if you don't know the figures, when you see this brought in front of you, you will not know what you're saying.
Is it possible that the president didn't know about these irregular deductions of 343.64 billion naira?
Sir, the president didn't know other things that are even simpler than oil expenditures.
But does ignorance make him?
No, we actually even told him, I am not aware. This is somebody who is not aware about very normal things. Then you are talking about the detail of finances. He is not aware. So what we are saying is, we should not continuously produce this kind of leaders who think they can double task on every single thing when they know nothing about it. He should be held accountable. I'm sorry.
All right, but for Mele Kyari, what's expectations with all these findings coming out now? Do you think the Auditor General of the Federation should do more than just putting this out to the public for Nigerian people? Shouldn't there be the process to prosecute, to arrest and prosecute people?
Let's start with an inquiry. Let's start with a public inquiry. Let these documents, you see, what aids corruption is when things are done in the dark.
Would you put what the EFCC just did 24 hours ago, where they sacked 27 officers without naming them for the public to know?
That. No, it infuriates me. How can you sack people for what we don't know what they did? So if others do it again, you will just sack them? How is sack a punishment? They should face jail time. I am sorry. We are playing with this country. They should face jail. They should be in chains.
So do they have the moral right to want to prosecute the former governor of Kogi State if they can let their own people go?
That's another big story on the side. But let's face this one first. Let's leave Kogi State first. How can you say your staff have EFCC, have serious cases, and you sack them? Please, how does a sack solve the problem? How does it deter the next set of people from doing it? Imagine if they stole 5 billion and then you sack them. So let me also steal 20 billion and sack me. This is wrong. This is it. We give precedence to evil. There are countries like China in which there's an amount of money you steal
and you're killed.
You be killed. So when you go to such countries, nobody really wants to die. You're careful. You look at how much you are earning. You look at the position you are enjoying. You look at the honor your family is getting, and you look at the corruption they are offering you, and you say no. Number one, I don't want the problem. I don't want to die. You will stay comfortably where you are and enjoy the rest of your life. We must come to this Nigeria, or else we are wasting our time.
All right, time is up, friend. Let's hit the next button for the next talk on our desk. The Ogun State Command has raised alarm over the significant increase in report of missing persons in Ondo State. And for you, what does that tell us in terms of suddenly this about missing persons and the insecurity in the country? The president has said he's not going to probe into whatever concerning the service chiefs. Are we on the right path in terms of the insecurity ravaging the country?
Missing persons, I think the police, I won't say they are doing a fantastic work, but truly they are trying. I've seen many instances in which the police were able to track somebody or track somebody who did wrong, or a person with carrying a human head.
My question is, when the police
give them some
when they do this job, do they do it because it's affecting an elite or they do it regardless of the status of the person involved? Because that's another key issue.
Let me use a practical illustration that happened to me. I had an iPhone. Okay, I used it for 4 years. I was somewhere around your office, central area near GTB, and I was going to the mosque to greet a friend. I'm not Muslim, but I have good Muslim friends. So while I was going there, some guys came out of that bush on the left-hand side.
That notorious
yes, and collected my phone and brought out a knife. And my iPhone was gone. Now, when I reported to the police, we rushed to the place. They now said, this place has been known. 2 of their ogas came when I went to do a police
report,
extract, yes, said that 2 of their bosses actually shot disguised as plain people, and while these guys came to rob them, they shot the guys, and that as we're speaking, 2 of those bosses have been dismissed.
So I don't understand.
The policemen are telling me that 2 of their bosses who shot
the criminals,
yes, who are part of that gang, after a while, they have been dismissed.
Why?
Because when there are people who are somehow above the law, I'm saying that even as you think the police have problems, I'm showing you that there are people who are even giving the police more problems. So the policeman is afraid. If I arrest a beggar who was sitting there, they ask her, she said, I can identify the boy. But if I identify him, you will go for him today, he will be out next tomorrow, and he'll be back for me. This is the Nigerian problem. So that woman knows who took my phone. That woman tried to warn me, but I could not understand her dialect. This is the Nigerian problem. If they have missing people, the police must be allowed to do their work. Whoever's son is involved in robbery, shoot him and kill him. No, see, we pet these things too much. These things have dragged for too long. People are being raped at that place. People are getting missing. These are also human beings. So when we keep dragging this matter, people's lives are going. When the police tells you that there's a surge of missing persons, my brother, they are not joking. The police is telling you that there's a surge of missing persons. Be careful when you are going somewhere. Announce where you are going. The state government should give more funds to them, more devices, more technology to be able to track phones, so that if a person is missing, you should be able to show the last 48 hours, the closest 10 meters to where his phone has been. We must do this. Our first duty is to make Nigerians safe.
All right, time not our friend, but well said. I want to say big thank you to Toba Owojayi, who is a political analyst and a political aide, for joining us on the desk this evening and give us a very sound analysis of some of the talking points we looked at this evening. Not forgetting the man Ibrahim Al-Hassan, who is the head of the political desk of EIB Network in Accra, Ghana, for joining us and giving us a lowdown as regards what played out in Accra with the inauguration of the President John Mahama, with 16 presidents turning up in Ghana, and also talking about Nigeria-Ghana relationship as they look at ways to tackle the issue of unemployment, poverty, and insecurity in the West African region and between these two great countries. My name is Anthony Bamodu, saying thank you for being part of the program, The Desk. Let's do this again tomorrow, where we come up with very, very salient issues making the rounds across the globe and right here in Africa's biggest black nation, Nigeria. Good evening.